Chair hosting the meeting.
OBS is on. We're live on Town Hall Stream, just as an FYI to everybody.
Thank you.
I will be calling Kathy right now.
Thank you, Brett. I see it now.
You on the way?
Oh, Cassie is here.
Because I think just acknowledged you. Yeah. Here we go. Cool. See you. All right. I know we're live. I will open up this town council meeting for February 2nd. We ready for the Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Albert?
I got you right here. Can you see it?
All right. Let's go. Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Twyla. Attendance and anybody that go roll call in attendance for anybody else that's present, please.
So,
Councilor Albert,
Here.
Councilor
Councilor Colby,
Here.
Councilor
Ganong,
Here.
Councilor
La Rochelle,
Councilor
Ward,
Here.
Councilor
Lunt,
Here.
and Councilor
Fellows.
Here.
And we'll
And
note
that Mark Stevens is also present.
And Brett as well.
And Brett.
And Brett, yeah.
Thanks.
Next item.
Good news
and recognition.
Anybody got anything for the audience tonight? Good news and recognition. I want to thank the road crews for their work today. First real storm of the season. I know they've been working on those to date. Clearly, it was appreciated this year. This storm was as long as it's actually gone through our town. So, thank you. Anybody else? Hearing none. Next item.
It is
a public hearing for the renewal special entertainment permit for the Railroad Restaurant and Pub.
Those
listening from Town Hall Stream, live video streaming are now invited to send written comments by emailing award@lisbonme.org.
I have nothing as of this time, so I will open and close that public hearing, Twyla.
Okay.
Next item?
Next item is audience participation and response for agenda items.
Again, those listening
from Town
Hall live video streaming may email award@lisbonme.org. Councilor Ward will review his emails at this time.
We have a brief statement, and I'm going to go through those. Anybody that's been in contact with me, that's all I've been doing for the last 2 days. So first, I want to say thanks to everyone who took the time to give me feedback via email, social media, text, call. or as Fern likes to refer to, aisle 5 at Food City. I apologize if I sound unprepared in my opening statement, but it's been a busy 2 days reaching out to you folks. Last count was, I believe, just over 140 emails. And anybody that actually provided me feedback, if I appeared short in my response, bear with me as I was trying to respond to everybody, because I do believe that everybody should be at least able to be heard in this process. If during the course of the meeting I appear distracted, realize the fact that it isn't that I don't have any interest in what you're actually presenting. It's the fact that in the nature of the social media and trying to adhere with standards for a public meeting, I am checking Zoom on screen, I am checking email on a cell phone, I am responding to text and the like. So that said, for the listening public, and there's no real fair way to be able to read this, and for the benefit of the listening audience that has responded to me, I'm going to go down through the list of everybody I have heard from. I'm going to read one yes vote on committee item number for the discussion on Moxie Plaza, Food Flower.
All right, so
I think I'm
distracted. We have
a
a
situation
situation where the volume is
not
not working right.
Is it on my end? Can anybody hear me?
All working okay here.
Just got an email. This is Brett. Just got an email from a listener on Town Hall Streams that says that the stream is echoing.
Okay.
So if you got a phone, if you're not speaking, I think the best practice is to mute that.
Thank you, Brett. All right. That said, first person, I'm going to butcher your name. I apologize. Mike Krapowski. I very much appreciated the live music, the social distancing, and outside opportunity this past summer. Bruce McKay is not inclined for anything if it can't be for all. Autumn Nieder is in favor of the plaza. Ray Medlin is against. He had concerns for traffic delays, congestion, and that kind of whatnot in that immediate area. Scott Hall in favor. Christina Jackson from Tangles, she identified herself. Parking, specifically in the immediate area and during the day. Availability for her businesses in that area, and what happens before the restaurants open up. Ken Withers and Marianne Withers in favor. Lisa Davis feels we should be doing more to support small business. Abigail Evans appreciated the music, in favor. Jen Jordan against. Kelly Fairblight felt that it was a life into Main Street, much needed during 2020. David Hughes, Diane Hughes, I'm sorry, against. Again, referencing the what happens during the day when nothing's going on. Matt Koza in favor. Christina Amaya. Concern for limited handicap parking in the immediate area for the amount of people, specifically for the businesses that actually are there during the day when it isn't in service. Closures and God, my handwriting is atrocious. I apologize, Christina. Ashley Dupuy, positive things for a bad situation billed to us this summer. Randall Smith, concerned for the lights at that intersection, and prefer that the energy be put towards Graziano Square. Justine Patrick, safe space to social distance. Natalie Capiano, not for this, but very much in support of a farmer's market if we could do it in a different location. Cheryl Haggerty, attractive gateways need to be improved. Upkeep of the immediate area were concerns, and this one's for Randy. I'd like you to put an action item on it for it, if you could, Diane. Apparently, right in the immediate area between Maine and Maple, I believe it is. If there's a road repair that needs to be done associated with that, at least put it on Public Works. I know that it is a temporary with everything that's actually being discussed, but at least put it on Randy's because.
I have.
Go ahead. Thank you, Diane. My concern there is Cheryl's the kind of person that actually put it out there. She'd actually do it, but she doesn't believe that actually it's the right thing to be fixing the town road, and I completely support her in that. So, here, Cindy Schaefer, referencing again parking in all businesses. Corey Bremer, in favor. Casey Couture. Y24/7, the number of businesses, the number of days that they're open, only 3 to 6, and too long in the season. That was basically referencing the fact that the way we rolled it out last year, like every other community out there, trying to extend as long as we could, feeling that kind of backlash and worked against us. So if we could put a definitive time to this. Christine Kane, in favor of the parklets, not the full closure. Murray Hale is against. Linda Douglas is for. Concerned about what the application fee and if there was one associated with that. Heather Curtis, prefer energy at the Warumbo site. Amanda and Aaron Plummer in favor. Adina Levesque is traffic. Zach Henderson prefers option A, dining in the broad Lisbon specifically, in the fact that sees it from an outsider's perspective as a growing community. Nicole Bauer against. Tina Tracy for. Jody Phillips against. Tom and Karen Whitney for. Nicole Hall against. Sydney Douglas for. Summer Tulip against. Devin Libby for. James Howard. He believes specifically that he made a point that if we're going to bill it as free entertainment, it should be free. So if we could put the energy into a different area, specifically identified the Warumbo site and put it there, where there is additional parking that wouldn't have the issue, he'd be in favor. Jeff and Sam Ramis for. Michelle P. against. Jeff and Pam Fournier for. Jeff Randall against. Ashley Fournier was for. Diane Hughes against. And she again referenced the limited amount of handicap parking. Austin Fournier, Megan Barabee for. Ashley Howard against. Tiana Lacombe for. David McCarthy against. Marcus Dubar for. Lisa Small against. Chris Couture. He'd like scenario A and he'd like to be able to see food trucks, something for potential for that lunchtime crew to be able to make use of the space better. Mona Nutrether, I apologize, against. Chris Reviles, he's for the parklets option in a better configuration. Amanda Roble, against. Concerns for the fire access. Point there for the listening public, I know it was part of the presentation, they had concerns, several people about the insurance, fire access, and liability. I assured those that actually mentioned those key points that they were part of the original discussion that greenlit this for us as a council back when. Jonathan Paul, for. Judy Field, against. Michelle and Dan Lehman. So, but it was even if there were detours, it was worth the workaround to be able to make it work, and appreciated it for summer. Ron and Brenda Hoskins. Why second year? The fact that if we're coming out of COVID associated with it, what's the need? Dean Willie, for. Vanessa Moore, against. Claire Kelly, for. Michelle and Maureen King, against. Jennifer Harvey David, for. Jessica Bennett, against. Jake Daniels, for. Savannah Harris, against. Maggie Sabo, for. Laura Ingerson, against. Visibility in the parking, and specifically identifying, I believe it was the Union Street area with some of the traffic coming down through there. Steve? Scott Harrington, for. Tony and Tracy Austin, for. Ange Kay, for. Jennifer Robert Howard, against. Mike Lacombe, for. Samantha Small, against. Taylor Feenan, for. Tim McClure, against. Ashley Dupuy, for. Christy Parmelo, against. Specifically parking, specifically on Union, her businesses there. Caleb Davis, for. Annette Wilson, against. Laura Dion, for. Lori Bowen, against. Mary Priestley, for. Felicia Osmond, against. Alexis La Liberty, for. Dawn King, against. Tina Dion, for. Amanda Morris, against. Chelsea Boylard, for. Carrie Conroy, against. And basically, Carrie's provided a lot of input through this process. I know that she's not advocating for a complete closure, very much interested in hearing what's there and expressing concerns for what was actually brought last year. Tricia Marie, for. Charles Barr, against. Christina Nicholson, for. Holly Randall, against. Amber Roy, for. Ross Cunningham, against. His point is specifically, if we don't have the support of 100% of the businesses downtown, could be their decision. I'm not sure I weigh in on that one way or the other. Carlene Munnett, for. Kiara Karen, against. Jessica Bailey, for. Christina Piche, for. TJ Sylvester, for. Abby Gamache, for. Karen Hinckley, for. Michelle Justwick, for. Carrie Evans, for. Jennifer Terrio, for. Charlie Cox, for. Jennifer Galatani, sorry against the penmanship, against. Lois Gieser-Dowski, for. Emma Kathleen, for. Jesse Stewart, for. Sean White, for. David Perry, for. And he would like David Perry additional use for office businesses. His point in making that, he'd like to see expanded. Jennifer and Mark Fish, for. Jeremy Barnett, for. Tyler Stone, for. Justine West, for. Corey Hess, Vincent Hess, for. And should Legislative Farmers Market. Kelly Wade, for. Kelly Michie, for. Patty Miller, for. Michaela Green, she's for. Neighborhood off Main Street. She's a neighbor off of Main Street, and she founded a Monterey family to work around it. Tyre Krieger, Sweet Cakes Bakery, very much pleased any entity down there should be supportive because the businesses down there support other small businesses in our community, and there's an offshoot towards the other side of town. Rob Kennedy, weekly dining, because of the plaza in an open space. The fact is, again, somebody from away that actually making Lisbon a destination because of the effort that we were actually doing. Andrew Perry, 4. Angie Demores, 4. Kate and Lee Boynton, 4. Janice Morse, 4. Ken Holt, 4. He'd like to see a stoplight at School Street. Shannon Graham, 4. Jim Harriman, 4. Linda Cummings, 4. Brian and Jessica Wagner, 4. Bill and Andrea, actually. I apologize, Andrea. 4. Jeff Kelly, 4. Support of local community, specifically in that area. Zoe Wall, 4. Randy Curtis, 4. Joanna Long, 4. Rochelle Fisher, 4. Andrew Trueworthy, 4. Ed and Tanya Gilkey, 4. Worth the drive to get here. Jennifer David, 4. TJ and Mark Sylvester, 4. Kate Medore, 4. Katie Bedard, Katie Brayrd, 4. Ryan Toll, 4. Good marketing for the town in a poor situation. Jonah Sauter, 4. I get Doug and Nicole Sauter. Peyton and Heather Austin, 4. Alex Holt, 4. Tanya Stroud, 4. Suzanne Langier, 4. Dargy, 4. Joey Moran, he would be the person I would say is in the middle. The fact is, his point there is the fact is he's not for a complete closure, but some of the other options that were expressed he'd be interested in hearing about. Randy Pruitt, 4. Dean Logan, he's 4. He'd like to see that if we could do something about the eastbound 196 traffic, being able to use the right-hand lane for a right-hand turn and the center lane for through traffic to help with the congestion. Burn. He'd like to see it specifically July to August and increase day use if we're going to do this again.
Ellen,
Yep.
sorry to interrupt, Ellen. Hey, Twyla, would you mind muting your phone, please?
Okay.
We good? All right. Lisa Padolo, 4. Diana Rolfe, 4. Faith Young, 4. Frank Clark, 4. Shelby Eck, 4. Tyson Laverdier, 4. Richard Main, 4. Joseph Eschine, 4. Jason Laverdier, 4. And I'll let you guys proceed because my phone just pinged and I will acknowledge whoever else is here. Anybody else got anything? We're at the audience participation stage. That would be a no. We're current, Twyla. Back to you. Again, if I offended anybody, I apologize. I'm trying to get everybody on the record because we have been working on feedback since 2020 to this topic. And it's been a busy weekend for folks. I appreciate anybody that put the energy into bringing me up to speed with what you guys choose to provide us. Thank you.
So,
will you be able to get a copy of that for the record for us, Councilor Ward?
All right.
The next item
is the
consent agenda.
Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be considered for adoption by one motion with no separate discussion unless the councilor requests an item be removed for immediate discussion. Any councilor wishing to remove an item may do so now. Seeing none. Order 2021, number 26, to approve the municipal accounts payable warrants for $443,572.59. The municipal payroll warrants for $184,101.81. The school account payable warrants $91,564.13. The school payroll warrant totaling $374,738.99, along with the minutes of January 19 and the special meeting minutes for January 26, 2021. And to approve the liquor license and special entertainment permit for the Railroad Restaurant and Pub, and to set a public hearing on February 16th for a medical marijuana establishment permit for BBB Pharmaceuticals, along with approving the liquor license for Flux Restaurant.
I'll make second.
Got a first and a second. Any discussion?
Who made the
first?
Fern, I believe, jumped in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
All right.
So then
a roll call.
Please.
all right,
All right, Counselor Albert,
Yes.
Counselor
Counselor La Rochelle,
Yes.
Counselor
Counselor Ward,
Yes.
Counselor
Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
Counselor
Counselor Ganong,
Yes.
Counselor
Counselor Colby,
Yes.
and Counselor.
and Counselor Fellows.
Yes.
And that's
And that's 7 yeas.
Order
Order
passed.
passed.
Next item, file.
Order
Order 2021, number 27 for the Net Energy Billing Bid Award.
Brett, you want to take that one?
Sure. I think we're having, getting texts and emails. I think we're having trouble with audio on Town Hall Stream. So if you can, please speak a little bit extra slowly and a little bit extra clearly for folks. I think folks can hear it. It's a little challenged. So, yeah, the net energy billing. You'll recall over the last few meetings, we advanced a couple of opportunities for the town to save money by participating in the solar energy market. Currently, the town is signed up with NextAmp, which offers the town a 15% savings off the top beginning in the fall. And then, in addition to that, more relevant for tonight, Energy prepared a RFP on behalf of the town. And those results have come back in. And we have a pretty clear leader in that opportunity. Ameresco is offering to the town the ability to purchase energy credits at 8.5 cents per unit with a 1.5% annual escalator over a 20-year deal. And based on a couple of different analyses, one being that the energy market stays the same. That's going to offer roughly a 4-cent benefit per unit to the town, which equates to a little over 70 grand in the first year, and then roughly 1.5 million over the 20-year term. We asked the Titan to prepare a sensitivity analysis to assess what the values of the town would be under different energy market environments. And even under a bad scenario where the rate that the town pays to Ameresco goes up by 1.5% annually, and the energy market and the value of the credits goes down 1.5%, the town still stands to save, under the worst case scenario, almost $500,000 over 20 years. And that's assuming that energy would depreciate, and that really hasn't happened. So, there's a pretty strong opportunity there for the town to perform better with Ameresco over 20 years than the current opportunity with NextAmp. And we've had some initial conversations around what the energy billing opportunity would be from a contract standpoint, and had the town attorney look at that agreement and come to the understanding that there's a pretty standard practice to have a performance guarantee. In other words, the town could hold Amoresco, for lack of a better word, accountable to deliver the value that they're putting forth in their bid in response to the RFP that Titan put out. So even under a bad case scenario, over 20 years, the town still stands to save pretty significantly, and it's more likely that the town has a chance to save 75 grand or more per year over 20 years and accrue that $1.5 million. So we're asking for authorization for Diane to have a conversation with Amoresco and negotiate an agreement based on the RFP response with a performance guarantee included.
Chair, may I?
Yes, please.
Is there any point to, is this, once we're locked in, is this something we have to continue on, or is there actually a process where if we do sign the contract, we can actually get out of the agreement if needed?
That's a good question. I believe it's a 20-year term, and we're more or less locked in for that term.
Guess that would being said, do they offer other maybe lower percentages of return if we sign up for say like 5 years? Is 20 the only option that we have? It's a long time.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think you get a better return over the long term by committing, and they know that they have an off-taker for the energy. So we ran that scenario, and then the other alternative, I think, in terms of a shorter term, is really that flat rate that Amoresco offers. So we can definitely go back and try to negotiate that term if there's desire on the council as part of the conversations with Amoresco. But my understanding is that they put forth that bid based on a 20-year opportunity.
Mr. Chair, be really careful with the council is not to lock in later councils, 5-10 years down the road with the condition that we set up for a 20-year term. It sounds really good money-wise. I just hate to tie the hands of other councils coming in. That's all.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Albert, go.
Yes. So my questions are with this particular agreement that they would like us to enter into. What happens for us if this company goes belly up somewhere inside of that contract? We're going to lose. So that's the first piece of that. My second piece of that is that we voted on something 2 sessions ago, and we didn't tie it directly to the funds, the savings in the first year, the 70K that you had mentioned, Brett. But we did mention it as a revenue source to pay for the that project there. And so I'm as concerned, I think, as maybe as has already been expressed about the long-term commitment. That would be the thing that would make me the most leery. I am not a solar energy expert by any stretch, so I only know what I know, and I know that there's been some real success stories out there, and there have been some real ugly stories that aren't so successful where folks ended up with a pretty significant price tags. I would like to believe that, like any industry, they go through their bumps and they'll come back around. But I think we exercise a lot of caution with this one, and I want to say that I'm not a big fan of a long-term contract.
Does anybody care to make a motion for discussion?
I'll make that motion.
How about a second for discussion?
Second.
Okay. At least we have a motion that we're actively voting on at this point.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other questions with Brett on the topic?
Motion?
The only thing I can say is this is not unlike another contract that was done by Rangeley with an offsite location, I think, somewhere downstate from there, for a long term as well. These are not new. On the other hand, from reading this, I can see it looks like we would not be tied into anything until it goes operational, and it's not operational until projected to be the fourth quarter, and I believe December of this coming year. With Taylor Hill facility in Lewiston, which it's supposed to take up 31% of the grid power from that facility. But as far as 20 years, I don't have the length of that whole contract thing in front of me. I can't see it because we're on a Zoom meeting, but I thought there was some provisions in there for terminating it, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
In terms of the performance guarantee, you know, I think one of the benefits of this firm is that it's a fairly large firm. And the way that the solar market works, in order to qualify for the energy credits, you have to be located within a region where that solar array is located. So Don mentioned Lewiston, and one of the questions that we asked as part of the preliminary conversations was, can we spread that out? You know, if we're linked to one solar array and the company has a broader portfolio, there's a certain amount of risk in being linked to that one versus spreading that risk out over multiple arrays. And so we get that that benefit there. And that's where the performance guarantee came up. And so I think Ameresco is a fairly substantial company. They've got a deal with Wells Fargo, among other names, to do all the solar arrays for Wells Fargo's locations. So I think by getting that performance guarantee with a fairly large company that's got a diversified portfolio, we're de-risking that deal fairly significantly. But these are all good questions that we can take up in those negotiations.
Chair, may I?
Sure, okay.
Again, Brett, thank you very much, because I know we actually asked, and this is over and beyond probably what you have opportunity to do every day. And there's a lot of information here, and I think it's actually great stuff. I mean, it's not very often that as a council, we actually get the opportunity to save $70,000+ a year. I mean, that's huge right now for anything that we're doing. So as anything, I mean, I have a concern about the long term, but on the other hand, if I would really leave it up to management to actually look at this and determine if this is the best opportunity. But now just going with a flat rate, I mean, the yearly savings isn't considerably the same as the 75,000, right? That's just a smaller percentage, correct?
There's actually, in the packet, there's a sensitivity analysis that runs the ranges. And if you were to scroll down, I can actually share my screen if you'd like. And we can look at that right now. Can folks see that? You able to see that? Okay, great. So you can see on the left there, as the deal goes up, and assuming that the energy market performs as it has historically, the value of the credit goes up by 1.5%. That's kind of the rosy glass scenario. And that gets us to 1.7 million in savings. The middle row there is essentially the energy market stays the same. Ameresco, we pay them an extra 1.5% annually. And that gets us to $1 million in savings. The worst case scenario that these guys have modeled out, which historically is fairly conservative, is that we continue to pay Ameresco an extra 1.5%. It escalates, and then the energy market de-escalates by 1.5. So our costs go up in this scenario as the potential revenue goes down, and you see it towards the bottom there. Year 16 through 20, we start to lose money. In that scenario, the town still saves $500,000. Now, looking below that, they also put together the NextAmp deal. And so you can see similar scenarios compared to that. And under the best case scenario, the savings are about $750,000, and then it goes down from there. So that's really that's the decision point for the council, is do you take a little bit less savings in the near term to maintain flexibility to take another option if it came down the road, or do you lock it in and have additional benefits that are baked into that deal? So you have that choice. We could stay with NextAmp, for a while, and accrue those savings and keep our options open, or the town can make the leap and go for a 20-year deal. Both options are on the table, and we have the sensitivity analysis to be able to paint that picture for you.
Anybody else?
Well, as we have it right now, Mr. Chair, the recommendation from the town manager and from economic development is to proceed. Am I correct?
Yes, and with the Amoresco first offer for the 1.6.
Well, I know from what I've read in the solar things, in the meetings that I've attended and the webinar that I attended, these are the up and coming things, and there has been a big surge recently because of the changes in energy policy from the state. So there's a lot more solar activity, and these guys are trying to fill up their grids one site at a time. I think there's an offer from HEP in there as well. And in there, and that's the second one down. That's the second here. I mean, the second recommendation, and the second one up. And I believe their facility is in Pittsfield, and we were supposed to occupy 21% of theirs. I think that I'm willing to proceed with it. I'm not worried about a 20-year contract. We essentially have a 20-year contract with CMP for things to go up every year. So
one of the points that was made by Titan as well that to share, and obviously they'd like to see us move forward. So keep that in mind. But one of the points that they made is that, as Don mentioned, there's a lot of activity, but there's a cap currently at the state legislature on the amount of credits that are available.
yes.
The point that they made is that our Maine's model is largely based on Massachusetts. And as Massachusetts, they're roughly 10 years ahead of us. As that first allotment of credits was gobbled up, the legislature reauthorized another round of credits, but the value went down. So if you get in early, because they're trying to create a strong incentive to participate, you tend to get a better deal. So there may be options, down the road, and Maine may approach it differently than Massachusetts has. But there is some potential benefit to moving more quickly on this and locking in a deal on the first round of energy credits.
I believe when we were speaking with Revision Energy some time ago, before we even got to this process, that was the same message from them, that there was urgency, a sense of somewhat of urgency in the matter.
Any other questions? Or are we ready to move the question? I make the motion, we move the vote, but roll call, Tyler.
Okay.
Counselor
Fellows.
Fellows.
Yes.
Counselor Colby.
Yes.
Counselor
Ganong.
Yes.
Counselor
Lunt.
Yes.
Counselor
Ward.
Yes.
Counselor
La Rochelle.
Yes.
Counselor
Albert.
Yes.
That's seven.
Order passed.
7 yeas.
7 yeas.
Next item, Twyla.
Order
Order 2021-28 IT managed services.
So I've been having monthly meetings with Jessica Pesquet through a roundtable. And our last meeting was 2 weeks ago. And she informed me that our current contract is up in May. And that when the contract comes up for renewal, they're going to be charging us more. So currently, right now, we're paying about $45,800 a year, or $3,800 a month, and that amount's going to go up to over $90,000 a year, starting on May 20th. That's when our contract renews. I think right now, because we've had these discussions in the past, that we ought to look into IT managed services in-house or at least go out to bid for that price. And when you're looking at over $90,000 for contracted services, it's time for us to look to see if we can hire somebody in-house. So we have until February 19th to let them know if we're not going to renew, a non-renewal clause in our current contract. So I'd like to let them know closer to that date that we're not going to renew and then look at our other options that we have. It's just, that's an awful lot of money for that, for Roundtable, and especially for the service we've been getting lately. I know I'm not happy with it, and neither is staff. And I've had some discussions with Council Albert about this.
Mr. Chair, may I offer a motion for discussion?
Yes, please. That's what I was going to try to circle around to figure out what her specific recommendation and phrase it for discussion.
I'll second.
No, I want to hear firms first.
Okay,
The motion was basically going to be to have us not to move forward with the extension of the contract and allow the management to actually look at other options for the short term and long term, and to see what our partners are in the town, to see how we can actually benefit from, an internal IT person to work with many departments, school, water department, whoever else needs it. I know Norm's brought this up many times, and going from 45 to 90, they're basically telling us they don't want us as a partner no more. So I think it's time for us to kind of go forward. So the motion would be is to not to renew the contract and allow management to move forward to figure out what our next option would be.
Mr. Albert, you good with that motion?
Yes, I am definitely in favor of that motion to move forward to look for a new IT in-house resource. I think we have we talked this one through pretty well. I think we're in a place where it makes the most sense based off dollars we're going to spend.
Was that a second?
Yes, that was the second. That's what was a long-winded second, Don.
Damn straight it was.
The point that I was trying to make is that we clearly need to be able to let them know by the 19th of February to be able to make that 90-day window. So I wanted to make sure that was in our motion. Okay. Any other discussion on this item?
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Does this preclude Diane from just also looking at putting this out to bid as well? Or are we just solely looking towards bring this in-house?
I heard the motion clearly say options. I wouldn't say option is one, so I would like to hear both proposals for sure. That was the other piece of mine. Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
But
Mr. Chair.
But the point that Diane made, for 90 grand, you throw wage and benefit here, you're in that price point. So both options should be viable to figure out which one makes the most sense. We can definitely pursue a RFP, but realize Roundtable was the low bid last time associated with that. So I'd be interesting to see what other competition would come up with for an alternative bid.
Mr. Chair?
I heard Don first, sorry.
Go ahead.
That's all right. I was just going to say, I assume the town manager would come back to us with a specific proposal.
Agreed. Norm?
Okay, good. I couldn't hear you, Alan. So, no, I was going to say, Diane, you may or may not be able to recall, but I think the last time we went out for this, we didn't get a whole lot of interest other than Roundtable, if my memory serves me correctly.
Right.
So,
I think the way I'd like to pursue this is to have a discussion with the school, obviously, and then see what we can find for somebody internally. And if that doesn't work, if we don't get any applications or anybody suitable, then we can go out to bid. I'm just not sure it's worth to do both of them at the same time. Unless that's what you want me to do, but. And I agree with Norm, they will probably come in at the low price again. I mean, I don't know at this point, but.
Jeff, where's your comfort on that? You raised the question.
My thing was just like I personally would just like to see options by the time it gets to the point where we have to make a decision whether or not, because I agree, like for upwards, like if all the bids come in around close to 95,000, then yeah, I'd much rather bring this in-house, but I would just like to know what is out there for options before we wholeheartedly go into bringing it in-house.
So in order to get that information for you, then I should go out for an RFP then and see what comes in for pricing. Because I'm not going to know any other way. I mean, I'm not going to know if somebody else will come in much lower than the new price that Roundtable is going to be charging us. I think, I'm trying to remember back to when we did it back in 2016, I believe it was. I think some of the pricing that came in was in the $70,000 and $80,000 range, and Roundtable was in the $50,000 range, but that included the other part that we have to pay them for the backup services. So that's separate from that 45. So that was back in 2016. So I mean, I don't believe it's going to be any cheaper than that. So, but we'll see. I can certainly do the RFP and see what we get.
Mr. Chair?
Backup services, is that done off-site strictly by Roundtable, or do we own the hardware that this could be done by a resource in-house?
I don't know the answer to that.
I was hoping Mr. Alves would know.
I think I can answer that. The resources that they would use for cloud-based services, we may pay for the equipment, but it's stored in wherever they store it. There could be some, they wouldn't store it on site, because the idea behind cloud is that it's off of the main location and from a secure standpoint. But bigger picture would be that if we use a resource like, whether it's Roundtable or another contracted resource, the base contract rate is not going to include any other project pieces like some of the additional costs that we were quoted by Roundtable this most recently, and then in the past as well. So it definitely is, I think it's important for us to see it, to Councilor Ganong's point. Let's see what the options are out there to see if this is the going rate or if Roundtable really is just trying to, push us out the door. And then from there, I'm still in favor of bringing it in-house for the simple fact that we would have a redundancy if we could partner with the school who already has an IT resource. I think it's best to have those kinds of resources in home, especially for some of the bigger challenges that we face, which is basic end user support, which we were not getting. Stuff that should have been resolved quickly was taking a long time and sapping efficiency and productivity. So that's stuff that I feel like that's low-hanging fruit for us, and we don't have to pay a ton of money to be able to resolve those problems quickly. But we can look at all of the options when they come in and make that decision.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, on that, Diane, the 90,000, does that include the backup services now, or is that in addition to that 90 grand? And do we have to address?
No, the backup services would be separate from that, because that 90,000 is an amount per user that they're going to be charging us.
Okay, so what is the cost for backup services?
That's, I believe, a little over 11,000.
Okay, and is that something that we could wrap into the same RFP, or how does that
Yes,
work?
no, I would include that in the RFP.
Okay, so for the listening start in the public record here, we're talking 101,000. Okay, that's why I wanted to. Don,
Over 90,000 is just totally that other part of it that we're paying 45,000 right now for.
Don.
So if we were to have backup services without, and yet we're bringing the services in-house, where do we get backup services? Is that easy enough to do? Or can we keep it with Roundtable or whoever?
I see.
While we bring.
I'm going to have to answer that because I can't.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
I would suggest a clean break from Roundtable altogether. And Dawn, I would think we would have zero problem with getting a partner for our backup, to handle our backup, our cloud backup services. That's not, because they're going to want the opportunity, if nothing else, to show us what they can do so they can try to bring us in and maybe offer more attractive services down the line at bundled rates. So to answer your question, I believe we could get that service taken care of at a reasonable price.
The other question I've had, if we already know what we're paying now, would it not make more sense to quickly go out and see if we can bring it in-house for somewhere around the same money? Because before we go out for an RFP?
depends on what you define as easy. You're actually got somebody on the hook that's willing to be able to commit the resource associated with that, and then you potentially say, yeah, we're good, we're going to try with an RFP. That kind of leaves an RFP problem there, and somebody's price tag actually just goes up substantially. i.e. specifically, and Mark can attest to this, that might have been some of the back and the forth that they had at the county level. It took them almost 2 years to actually bring somebody in-house to be able to do exactly what we're talking about. So I don't know, I would say if you're gonna commit to actually hiring a resource, that we not push pause and then think we can do it better by doing a RFP. I would commit one way or the other.
Well, it seems to me that we're going to end up sharing a service anyway, because we don't have enough stuff or enough work for full time. So we're going to end up, I would think, sharing a service, or finding somebody part time, which is probably not possible.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, we're assuming that we don't have enough work for a full time. I am no expert in this field. I have no idea. I've never looked at the full scope. I don't think any one of us would have a true scope of what the work is. Just in the police department and the town office and all the other departments associated with, I don't know. I mean, so there could be a scope of work that's larger than we think. We just don't know, and I think that's the hard part of being, going out right now for this too, is knowing how much work we have.
One of the sound bites that Diane mentioned in discussing this is that resource from the police department, would they be willing to be able to assist us on the town side, not knowing what that additional amount is, to be able to address that. So it's all part of the options, if you will, that I was listening for in Vern's original recommendation. It's just which way do we want to land?
Yeah, just for history-wise, I mean, we have in the past had a full-time IT person on staff that actually did serve the whole community as far as police and town. So it isn't something we haven't done before. We just got away from it because of a few different reasons, but mainly because we just needed an outside service to come in and take care of it for a while, and that kind of hooked into a long-term deal. So, I think the options just need to be out there, but at the end of the day, it's very much better to be able to control our destiny instead of having someone, spending a lot of money and not having someone do what we need, because it doesn't sound like we've really had much of a good partner, if you want to leave it that for a little while. I mean, I think someone internally probably could have helped us, maybe got through some of the our updates on our software system changeover. There might have been a lot more resources for us if someone was actually in-house versus the idea depending on someone that we had to talk to over the phone. But just my opinion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Something to be mindful is it sounds to me like we are on the same page about at least letting, authorizing the town manager to let the roundtable folks know by the deadline of the 19th that we're not going to go ahead and accept that new price. But that may be to a point where if we can bring in a resource, and this is just me thinking out loud, there are temp agencies, especially technology folks, that we can contract in. And what we're trying to do is understand what the scope of work is that we have to bring in an independent contractor and basically say, here's what our day-to-day is, here's what we need. And we can make a decision about that accordingly. We can have somebody who could make an assessment on if you were to hire a resource here in-house for end-user support, password changes, locked out, printer stuff, things that they could do here. Then they could look at the larger scope things like maybe the PD side of the house or server maintenance or cloud offsite storage. There would be somebody who would have background in the field and a potential to understand that this could be a role that they could apply for at the end of their contracted time. So we can understand, more importantly, the bigger picture stuff. Can this be farmed out? And if it can be farmed out, the person who we had making that assessment would be here from square one to kind of understand what our unique needs are. That's just me making a recommendation and suggestion. I think that might be worth our time, because we don't have somebody who can make that assessment, and we would just use the RFP that we had for Roundtable, would be my guess, Diane, maybe with a few adds to it. So that's my take on this. I just think it might not be a bad idea, and it wouldn't be a waste of money to run a temporary technology resource in-house with us while we still have the remainder of our roundtable contract through, is it May 31st or June 30th?
May 30th, May 20th, actually.
May 20th, okay. So we have some time to make that decision where we could get somebody in here to make an assessment at the very least.
I actually like that idea.
Fern, it's your motion, so if I'm hearing options, we're exploring an RFP, exploring trying to actually bring in somebody to be able to see if we can't contract with an IT firm, and all else fails, hiring. Are you okay with that order for those options?
I think the original motion was to actually just get done with roundtable and actually look at options. So any options I think is fine. So I mean, I think that's why we have management in place to look that out and to find our best option, right? So that fits in the scope of my motion.
That's why I'm asking. Jeff, you raised the concern. You're good with the approach?
Yes, I am.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion on the item? Call the roll, please, Twyla.
Okay. Counselor Albert? Counselor Albert?
Your phone's on
Counselor Albert?
Thanks.
There we go.
Counselor
Did you say me?
Albert?
Okay, thank you, Twyla.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Counselor
And Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
And
And Counselor Ward?
Yeah.
Counselor Lunt?
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Ganong?
Counselor Ganong?
Yes.
Counselor
Counselor
Colby?
Colby?
Yes.
Counselor?
Counselor Fellows?
Yes.
We have
We have
7
seven
yes.
yes.
No
Nays?
Order passed.
Order passed.
Next item, I believe, is the report, Twyla. Is that the case?
Yes. Other
Yes.
business?
Other business, council committee
reports.
report.
School. Mute. One more time, Norm, you're on mute. Gotcha. We're reading lips. Norm said nothing to report. Planning.
Planning board met last week, and they were right in the throes of discussing the medical marijuana ordinance revision possibility. Actually, Dennis was doing the heavy lifting on that, and they're also discussing some possible zone changes down the road.
LDC, sir?
I'm not sure if Brett wants to step in and give his update, but a lot of stuff happening, a lot of stuff from downtown, discussion going on tonight. But Brett, I know you had a lot at the last meeting, so if you want to just add to that, you can.
Yeah, real quickly, our next meeting is the second Wednesday of the month, coming up next week. I think it's the 10th. Probably a big topic there will be Main Street. Also, the RFP for the Warumbo architectural renderings. We got 4 good responses on that RFP, including a couple that include letters of interest from developers that we would probably be very interested in talking to. So good progress on that. I'm sure we'll have a jam-packed agenda. Good conversation.
Conservation. I got goals. They've been working with Mark on their goals for the coming year. Kind of goes in tandem with the recreation department update on goals. Dog-friendly park on Summer Street is still in the process. Beaver Park Bathhouse is a little bit further out. Digitization of the mapping trails at Beaver Park is an ongoing thing. The logging plan for town property, specifically Beaver Park, is still in process. And Miller Trail fencing and at the MPM was completed. Anything that I missed there, Mark?
We applied for that. Well, we submitted an application for the competition I told you about last month for the Ugly Duckling Trail. We didn't get it. We were finalists, but we were in the running. Unfortunately, we didn't get it, but we can try again next year. This is the first annual competition, so we'll submit another application this time next year, see what happens. The Recreation Committee is going to be meeting by Zoom tomorrow night, and we're going to be talking about, we're going to be reviewing the budget, and they're going to be looking at adding to the goals that you just read off for 2021.
Thank you, sir. County, there's nothing at this time. Library, Mark?
Nothing new to report.
Water? Don? You're still on mute. There you go.
You didn't read my lips. They meet next week.
Okay. The one thing I would listen to the listening public is the town is currently accepting applications for the vacant water commissioner seat that we should take action on. I believe we slated the next meeting. Diane, is that the case?
Yes.
And I am aware of at least 2 that have been received at this point in time. Have there been any others?
No, just the 2.
Okay. And for the council benefit, having heard it, internal applications, they're both people that faces here would know when you see the names associated with that. So it seems to be consistent with what we've done in the past. Any questions on content on that? Okay, none. Finance committee? Missed it, Norm. You're locking up.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me? No?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So I got nothing new other than to say that we'll have another meeting coming up and starting to dig into the teeth of it. And the finance committee will be sitting in with the town council for all of the budget workshops that we have, so they can be an active part of that for us and engaging in it. So that's good news.
And I think I don't know if I shared it with the full council, so I'll do so now. My intention would be 100% virtual for the budget proceedings, knowing that it's a larger cast, to be able to get everybody on board, to at least hear the questions Diane already has a weekly rotation schedule, so the department heads can make their presentation. I would ask, like we've done in years past, the questions for that department being discussed that night are in the week prior to be able to get the answers for the listeners that night to be able to make our weigh-ins. Anybody have issue with that? Hearing none, seeing none. Next item, Twyla, is town manager.
Yep. I don't have anything to report tonight.
Next item, Twyla.
All right.
After that would be the summer 2021 programming.
Brett, can you do us a recap briefly of information for feedback to date? I know you had the downtown meeting associated with that and the content that was actually heard from that to augment the emails that I referred to at the beginning.
Sure. So I guess from the top, one of the goals of taking this up at this point in time is to get clarity on where we want to go for summer 2021 with enough time to plan, get the appropriate approvals, and put the pieces in place, which could include, using the equipment that we purchased last year with grant funds. Depending on the scenario, we might need some supplementary equipment to make a scenario work, but also to make sure if we want to move forward aggressively, that we act on the agenda item that we discussed last council meeting, which is a summer event coordinator as part of the a tweak to the job description of the Moxie Festival coordinator. So last year, we scrambled to address a crisis in the COVID pandemic. We learned a lot from that scenario of closing Main Street, and we continue to get good feedback on that and opportunities to improve that. But here we are in February, and we've got time to plan. So whether or not the council would like to go forward with Main Street or another opportunity, I think it's wonderful that the amount of folks provided the feedback that they did. And that feedback last September, we had a recap meeting at MTM and heard a lot of good input about what worked, but also more importantly, what didn't work and how we can improve. And in the meantime, we've taken some steps in the direction to address those concerns. And then a couple of Thursdays ago, on the 21st of January, we had a follow-up Zoom that talked about parking improvements, better signage, but also the summer coming before us, and got additional input on what we did last year and how to make that better. And so with the calendar before us and the opportunity to put the pieces in place to be successful and to address all the concerns, we put forth a couple of scenarios last Friday by an email that was broadly distributed, which included the council memo that you all have seen, and a couple of scenarios. One, what we did last year with improvements to address concerns about wayfinding, about visibility, about energy during the day on Main Street, and putting the pieces in place to make sure that we're really bringing foot traffic down there, and better signage so that folks understand how to get down there, that it's open, that businesses are looking for business and bringing energy there. And then another scenario, which it was addressed at the MTM meeting in September and then reiterated more recently, is the idea of a parklet plan, where you create outdoor dining opportunities and outdoor event space, but allow for through traffic to continue on Main Street. So what this memo that we shared with you tonight really is to try to get clarity as soon as we can on the direction that we want to go in with the most input that we could generate. And I'm really glad to see that a lot of folks weighed in, both negatively about what we can improve and also positively about what worked. And so, before us, we have a couple options. We can do what we did last year with improvements, or we could look at a different scenario that could create similar benefits for the restaurants who took advantage of Main Street, but also leave through traffic in place. So that's where we're at. And at a staff level, the sooner we can reach a landing on the direction that we want to go, obviously the more time that we'll have to put the pieces in place to be successful and to not be in a position that we were in last year, which is scrambling to respond to the conditions outside of our control. But in this year, now that we have the calendar, we have more control to improve those opportunities, broaden the benefits for all Main Street businesses. So that's what we're looking for tonight. And if you'd like, I can share my screen for the folks who are watching to get a visual of both scenarios and then go from there.
Mr. Chair?
Is anybody opposed to Brett sharing his screen first time?
No.
Please, just for the benefit, I know people will be watching and looking at this. Why don't you do so, Brett?
Okay. So this is the attachment, the third page of the memo. You'll see there that that's the diagram from last year. The reason we landed on that this design last year is that it allows traffic to enter Main Street, pull in between what was once the optometrist shop and Mike's Flooring, and access the back parking lot and be able to leave. One of the big issues I think down there, two key issues. One was the visual at the intersection of Main and Union, and a very awkward, ugly sign that said, through traffic not allowed. It was based on DOT engineering requirements and in conformity with what they wanted to see. The other one was a pretty, I'll be honest, a clunky vendor application process that really emphasized non-compete considerations for neighboring businesses versus bringing, for example, food trucks down to Main Street. So two immediate, off the top, fairly simple opportunities to improve that design would be to seek at least a temporary four-way stop at the intersection of Union and Main, which allows visual up and down. It would slow traffic using Union Street or Maple Street. We heard concerns about traffic avoiding Main Street and sort of bombing through at high speeds in other neighborhoods. I also know that Public Works has a few temporary speed bumps that we could deploy and locate in appropriate places to slow traffic down. And so, better visuals, better traffic management for this design. And then the other would be to use, with the approval, also meaning to broaden the job description for the Moxie Festival coordinator into a summer event coordinator, so that we've got somebody boots on the ground focused on this space soon. Ideally, if we can get the job posted, and Mark Stevens is on this call, and Mark, weigh in here at any time about that particular piece for sure. If we can get the job posted soon, then we can get somebody talented with the right skill set on board to put a summer event series together that could use Main Street, food trucks during the day, but also look at opportunities across the street at Warumbo for bigger events, and really put together a package for the summer that brings people into Lisbon. COVID, there's good momentum there with the vaccines, but there's still a lot of uncertainty, and there's going to be a demand for folks who want to get together outside. There's going to be a need for Main Street businesses, and in particular restaurants, to be able to spread out outdoors to serve folks. So the idea, if we were to move forward with Main Street again, would be staff to coordinate events and assist local businesses on Main Street to create events, in addition to better traffic flow, better visibility, and hopefully better foot traffic on Main Street. The other option,
Can you stay right there for a sec?
Sure.
The one soundbite that I heard recurringly from folks not in support of this, they referred to the side lot. Can you got your cursor?
The what? I'm sorry?
There you go. Move your cursor to behind Moxie. That is not owned. That is private property associated with that. And the other area that I heard specifically recurringly with the side lots and the lot out behind the laundromat, again, the area that's here that's actually discussed is something that is currently within control for closure. Everything else that you're seeing, except for the strip that the town maintains that we plow, is not. It is all private property. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, sure. That's good. Thanks for that clarification. Another alternative, and we discussed it last year, there was more support for the Main Street closure than there was in this scenario. But, we've gotten good feedback since then. And this scenario would create roughly 3,000 square feet compared to the 4,000 square feet with the Main Street closure. So you've got a little bit of a loss of space here, but still fairly ample, fair amount of space here. And the way that we would look at it is the parallel parking lane would be protected by Jersey barriers, which are taller traffic barriers than what we had last year. And that would create the sidewalks roughly, it varies a little bit down the block, but it's about 9 feet. The parking lane is about 16 feet, or rather 8 feet. So you've got a total of 17 feet there wide. And I think that we can get 2 rows of tables, one on the sidewalk, one adjacent to the curb, which would allow a pedestrian alley that's ADA compliant on the outside edge, close to the Jersey barriers there. So you'd have the opportunity here to have outdoor dining and some other opportunities without blocking traffic. There are some concerns about, in this scenario, about whether the space would be used based on traffic moving through, dust, exhaust, those type of things. So if we were to move down this road with scenario B, we'd want to look very carefully at traffic calming measures. So the four-way stop at Union and Main would slow folks down. We would want to paint this crosswalk here very brightly, and we would probably want to put planters similar to what we had last year, and you know, about mid-block that jut out into the street and narrow the street so that folks, as they move down Main Street, are slowed down through traditional traffic calming measures. So that's the other scenario. You know, there's a lot of other scenarios that have been discussed. Great input about moving it the whole thing over to Warumbo. There's some challenges there at the sort of day-to-day level for the restaurants on Main Street, and they would have a very hard time taking advantage of that. Additional cost, additional insurance. So I think Warumbo is a wonderful opportunity for larger events, maybe on the weekends or, you know, Monday nights. Mark has a great idea about a classic car cruise with food trucks on Monday nights over at Warumbo. But for a day-to-day scenario, you know, we really need to create some outdoor space on Main Street to keep our restaurants in place. That's a big challenge for them right now. And I think we're looking at a tough row for those folks if we don't create some adjacent outdoor dining space on Main Street. So good input from a lot of folks as Alan read through. I think that we've done some work based on input from the past about how to make the Main Street closure successful this year. But I also think that there's a lot of potential value here in scenario B that can create some of the benefits without some of the issues that have been brought to our attention.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, thank you, Brett. Take your screen down, please. Go, Don.
I'd like to make a motion, and we have two scenarios here. This motion could be used for either one of them, but I think we need to do something, but I also think we don't want to hurt anybody if that's possible, nor do we want to put anybody out of business. So I'm going to propose option A in a formal motion here for discussion, so that we can, if we can get a second, we can discuss it and we can either vote it up or down and either go with option B or not option B. So here's the motion for discussion. Motion to adopt scenario A, that's the Moxie Plaza improved closing Main Street between Father's Day weekend and Labor Day weekend, 2021 inclusive. This pending town council approval of a detailed and budgeted plan by February 16th that is specifically designed to mitigate the already enumerated shortcomings of the Main Street closure of 2020.
I'll second for discussion.
You're muted, Alan.
I'll second for discussion. Can you hear me?
Sorry, thank you, Don. Yes, I have a first, I have a second. Who would like to go first in the discussion? Come on, somebody.
Nobody wants the hot potato, so I'm going to take it. No, I know we're just talking about A. I want to talk about B too, so I just want to make sure I don't step all over that, Dawn. You're saying that we'll talk about the A option first and then have the B discussion after? Is that what you were saying? I'm not sure I'm clear on that.
That was the idea, so that if it has life, fine. If it doesn't have life, we can think quickly of something else.
Well, the reason I say that is just confusing because if we vote in favor of A, then we're just going to.
That's Don's point.
Yeah, okay. So good. Okay, fair enough. So that being said, I think that hearing the amount of input was definitely it was refreshing to get a lot of feedback on a topic. And so some of the things that I know Brett worked hard on after we wrapped last year was having that wrap-up meeting, taking the good and the not so good feedback that came through there, and trying to capture it, and then not only capture it, but come with a game plan of how can we tackle that going into the new year. And I think that what we saw back in mid-January was a well thought out approach to some of those concerns that some of the business owners brought forward, specifically related to parking, how it impacted, because those were some of the areas that were, impacting these folks' businesses. You have one business owner down there who had two businesses that were solely dependent upon having easy parking so that they could get at the laundromat or get in for a haircut. And these are things that if you don't have access to a parking space, it's closed. Or if you cater to a clientele that might be a little bit older, and so they need that easy access, or in some cases, they need the access that has is going to be something that they can manage. So that said, that was something I thought was thought out very well with the solutions Brett offered up in the form of marking the signs as, this business parking only, limited parking. I know there's also some additional talk of, suggestions for enforcement and how that would look. And so there's some things that we still need to work out, but I think that was a good step in the right direction to say, hey, we heard your concerns and your feedback, and we're going to try to make an effort to see what we can do to fix that before whatever happens this season coming up. We just want you to know we're working on it. So there's the first piece of it. The second piece was that in looking at the layout and understanding where there was another business that was impacted in a way that wasn't great, the signage. And so I felt like we made an effort there to take that road closed sign out of there. It didn't send a great message, and it was tough to understand what was going on down there based on the way it looked. And I don't think that's anybody's fault other than the fact that we did what we were asked to do by DOT. So we're learning it on the fly. It wasn't like we're in year 5 of this and we have all this experience under our belt. We were in year 1, and week to week we would learn new things. Sometimes we would learn them painfully, but we would learn them. And so I just want to say that I don't think that either of these options it has one thing in mind, and that is to provide relief to businesses that sorely need it. These businesses that are downtown, I never thought I'd see the day where one was going out another. And I don't feel that that's the case here. I just feel there are a few who might be kind of stoking the fire a little bit when it comes to that. Because I've seen businesses down on Main Street promote others who were maybe not doing so well. So I know that they're very much working together. That said, when it comes to A and looking at the two plans, A and B, I feel that A would be more beneficial and less detrimental than B. I think that the B proposal could actually close off one of the businesses, the retail businesses that was impacted last year. If we have tables and such, and Jersey barriers running up all of that lane, I believe that would be right in front of that particular particular business. If I'm wrong there, Brett, correct me. But it looked like it's going to run right in front of Sippy Cup. Is that right?
You're not wrong, but we did clarify that option for that particular business, and they could live with that.
Okay, good. Thank you. Just want to make sure I saw that and I understood that. And so so I guess where I live on this right now is we know one other piece that's coming as well, and that we may have a Moxie Festival this year. We may not. It may be a hybrid version of Moxie. It may not be. But any way you slice it, we wouldn't have a parade that would go down Main Street either way, just because of what would happen and how that would be difficult if we had that whole sidewalk closed off. And next year, the whole street is going to be under full-blown construction because of the DOT work. So we know we have some things coming as well, too, that will definitely have an impact on those businesses again next year. So I guess where I stand on this, based off what was being proposed, I'm living with the option A for now. I think it worked last year, and I think with these improvements that have been recommended, it can work even better. And so I'm going to go ahead and last thing I'm going to mention is during Brett's presentation to us there, I think the one thing that we want to keep sight of, and I know we will, is that if we bring on a coordinator, it's not just going to be about utilizing Main Street, Lisbon Falls, and the Warumbo site, both great things. We're also going to look to try to go towards the village again. I know that's been a task that we all agree needs to happen and sorely overdue. So I think looking at using Graziano Square for some events is something that's long overdue, and we're going to focus on too. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
No. Yes, sorry, I'm on mute. No, go, John.
I just wanted to emphasize, I'm with option A as well. I think it's a better experience down there when it is used. I also agree that the lack of use for a lot of the time and the perhaps hurting of a couple of businesses because of the barriers that were there or perceived to be there were a problem. But I also think, even though businesses are not universally accepting of this right now, they can be, I mean, there's some fear there because they experienced trouble last year. But I think we can mitigate those things. And I think Brett's already addressed most of them. We talked about the four-way stop, and we talked about wayfinding signage and invitations and marketing and that kind of thing that markets the businesses that are down there, as well as the whole town. So I think we can mitigate those things, and I think we can make it a plus, dragging to some people's experience, dragging people in from other parts of the community, other parts of the town, not just Lisbon people. We've done it some, and I think we can do it better with more marketing. I think if we do nothing, if we don't do option A or option B, we're probably going to put at least two businesses out of business. And I don't think any of the existing businesses down there want to put anybody out of business. At the same token, they don't want to get hurt, and I understand. So that's why I'm resting where I do.
Jeremy, I.
Yes, please, sir.
The again, last year I think was a big undertaking. I really appreciate everybody that stepped forward. I know Brett and Mark and the rest of the crew actually really came forward, and again, it was a very unusual circumstance. It was brought on very quickly, very much doing anything we could to make it work. I mean, myself owning a business has been in town for over 50 years. Last year was one of the most challenging years we've ever had in business, and I didn't have a roadblock. It was just COVID actually just put up roadblocks everywhere. It was a very challenging year. I mean, for everybody I know in business that I've dealt with. To me, I feel I'm accountable that represents all the businesses on Main Street, and I've shared this with everybody, so it's really going to be unknown. Unless we get 100% buy-in, I can't see shutting the road down. I really can't. And I'm a big supporter of both Flux and Frank's. If there's a way that we can actually serve and try to please everybody, I think I'm all for that. If that's option B, that's great. But I've just heard enough concern, and maybe I'm just business, more in the business community, so that's where the businesses reach out to me with their concerns. I don't really know, but I've heard a fair amount of people just really having very much concern going into the season, thinking that their livelihood, their business is going to be shut down up front because of a road closure, and that's pretty scary, So I don't think I think the balance of actually helping one and maybe hindering another is not that I want to weigh in on. If we can actually move forward, and if option B is something we can work with to actually serve and try to take care of all the businesses down there, I would actually support that without a doubt. Just hearing what we've heard from concerns, even tonight with Alan's response and with our government response, and from what we heard from last year, I definitely would not support A unless we actually had, definitely taken care of every concern downtown. I don't think we could do that at this point in time. So as much as I appreciate the efforts, I want to make sure that everybody succeeds, but the word everybody is key right there. It's not, it's I think at all the meetings we've had, we've heard a general consensus of concerns that probably wouldn't be addressed. But again, I guess I would, if we are going to be taking a vote tonight, I mean, I definitely cannot support A, only because of the concerns that's been addressed to me. And being a counselor that tries to represent everybody that reaches out to you, I think it's only fair that, unless we actually have fixes for all those, it's really hard to move forward to give a blessing on one direction versus the idea of, I think it may change the whole dynamics of downtown if you start putting businesses against businesses because one feels that they're being benefited over the other or vice versa. We have a good working group down there. I think everybody wants everybody to succeed, but they don't want actually to feel that it's not weighed 100% evenly all the way up and down the road. So again, maybe unpopular, maybe it's not, I don't really know, but I mean, if we're looking for straw polls before we make this vote, I would have a hard time voting for A. Unless something, amazing was to happen. I mean, B actually seems like it does serve kind of the needs. It allows some seating to expand with the 50% internal, with the 50% outside. If that 3,000 allows for that, at least we'd be maintaining what they have ability to seat. Maybe not, but at least it'll allow them to have an opportunity to, the town would be giving them an opportunity to actually expand, move forward and try to actually maintain the business while all this craziness goes over, and then we have those other areas to try to do some bigger events to actually try to promote, the rest of the businesses in town and try to get people outdoor and safe entertainment. I mean, I think there's a lot of good ideas. I think without a doubt, the idea of bringing someone on for an event coordinator, I think that's key. Brett's done an awesome job, but I think Brett has a lot of things to do. I don't think he can be focusing 100% on this and still do the stuff that we actually recommend, or not recommend, but need him to do in our town as far as bringing in new business and trying to expand avenues there. So again, that's my take. I mean, if I'm representing all the businesses down on Main Street, I cannot in good faith actually vote for it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Don.
Whenever anybody is exhausted from talking about it, maybe we could do a straw poll. Depending upon how the straw poll comes out, if it's not in favor of it, then I could withdraw my motion and we could go another source. So
okay.
Everybody should be allowed to. I don't know if everybody like Mark or Jeff or anybody has input for it, but if they do, that was a good time.
Okay, I have a couple of questions for Brett, actually. How many businesses are down there total in that section between Union and 196, and how many have expressed problems or opposition to closing the street?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm trying to think. 1, 6, 7, 8, 10. I'd say there's about 10 businesses down there.
Okay.
And if you go a little bit further, including School Street, a little further up, I think we need to include the sausage kitchen. Carrie Conroy has expressed concerns. I think it's roughly split. I think that's a fair way to say it. I think we have strong components, and then I think not to qualify it or put anybody in a box, but I think the retail folks are the ones who expressed the concern.
You're going, Mark. Any more?
I mean, at the moment, I'm leaning towards option B just because I think it seems like more of a balanced option between trying to balance out the needs of the restaurants and the retail folks, so we're not pitting one against the other, and it still will give the restaurants outdoor space. I mean, in some ways, option A is more the visionary option that does give you more space to work with, but I really hate to do it in the opposition to, if half the business down there don't like it. I really have trouble supporting that.
Chair?
Yes.
If we're doing like the straw poll thing, I'm in the option B scenario. I think option B gives, at least allows us to address the goal of alleviating pressure on the restaurants, while at the same time still giving access to the road. Also, I think as the summer goes on, presumably COVID restrictions are going to get lifted, hopefully. So as we get into the July, August, September range, the seating restrictions shouldn't be as big of a plague for restaurants when we get into that part of the year. So anyways, that's where my mind's at. I'm more on the option B side.
Mr. Chair, we kind of sort of have a straw poll except for one. I don't know where Cassie stands on the issue.
Cassie is the last one we're going to go to, right? Cassie?
I'm honestly all for either one of them. I mean, as long as we're able to provide the resources so that the restaurants are able to survive, and as well as other businesses down there. I mean, I went down there frequently, and this last summer, for not only the restaurants, but also my hairdresser is right there. I go shopping right there. Two of the retailers, I didn't personally find a problem finding parking. During the daytime, when those restaurants are closed, there's ample amount of parking to be able to go and frequent those other businesses. In the evening time, those other businesses are usually closed, and there was ample parking usually for the restaurants. So whether you had it shut down like we had it last year, or you have it shut down as option B, I mean, I think both will work. That's just my 2 cents. I mean, I didn't find an issue.
Okay, let me complicate, Mr. Chair. In the interest of more unified response, to pick up Fern and everybody that seems to be somewhat opposed to option A, I would withdraw my motion so that we can extend to option B.
Is there any way that we can just potentially put together like the pros and cons of both of them? Why do we have to pick one specific one at this point?
Cassie, to that point, the motion on the table is to have by our next meeting in February a plan. That's where I want to go on this, is what's in that plan that we know that we're actually ultimately going to say addresses the concerns that have been raised and the feedback that we've received associated with that.
Mr. Chair, the reason for the deadline of February, whatever it was, is Brett requested that to get moving fast.
Right. I mean, I'm sure just like anybody else, in fact, the way that I look at this and everything that I've heard in the last 2 days is that 2020 actually, when COVID closures hit, council and staff priority to assist our local small businesses, as every other community was actually doing, to be able to make the best of a pretty horrific thing associated with that. I don't honestly believe that anybody here would knowingly try to put another business in an unfair position, and I don't believe that would be the case. Some of the more volatile topics that I've heard associated with that, I would like to pump the brakes on those, because I don't see any benefit of pitting one business against another. Key sound bites that I've heard in this, the drive-by and foot traffic. I heard a recurring enforcement and fines of the parking, specifically the fact that people that are parking there all day, every day should not happen. Signage needs to address, and we're now creating an issue that needs to be addressed from our PD to be in support of this, to be able to make sure that that doesn't stay, because those 9 to 5 businesses, 8 to 5, whatever their hours are, they need to be able to meet their needs as well, to your point, Don, with retail. I'm sorry, that was correct. DOT approval. Are we going to have the same issue associated with the sign associated with that? Is that something that's in our control this year versus last year?
I think we can make the case. We have to have the conversation with them, but I think that we can definitely make the case, especially with the feedback coming from the businesses. If we wanted to move forward with they obviously have a big say in what kind of restrictions are in place and what kind of impact that has on the businesses. And I think that they were very supportive last year of what we were trying to do. And if we could come up with an alternative, I think that they would be on board.
Looking at my next point, I'm jumping around here because I'm bipolar as hell. Bear with me, folks, because I really don't care. Moxie Parade, I clearly heard it. I'm looking at Mark and I'm looking at Cassie associated with that. And I'm looking at Diane knowing her husband, the other 50% of that would be co-chairs. The fact is, by this point in the game, I would have already put out information to be able to start soliciting for a Moxie Parade for this year. So anybody that thinks that there's going to be one this summer, I don't see it happening because I don't see restrictions being any time quick enough to be able to have any sort of event that I want to put my name on. So I can name that one right now. Village Street. I've heard some really good things and ideas associated with that. The key soundbite, the difference between this year and last year is that we were dealing with construction issues on a couple of different things. Part of the sidewalk project, and everybody's seeing now that area is grassed over and in a better position to be able to receive some of that. That point has been made, and something that we as a council tried to actually get. Again, building closures could have hit a lot of things. The expectations of what we're looking for to be able to get them done. That is what it is. I'm about done on that. I can support either in my preference. I'm landing in A all day, but in that regard, the intention here is I look at this from a perspective, right, wrong, or otherwise. The fact is, if I have an opportunity or the duty to actually assist businesses that weren't here 3 years ago to actually potentially get a chance to be here 3 years from now, I'm going to take that chance all day, every day. So, back to you, Don.
May I suggest, Mr. Chair, that we do a straw poll on option A?
I think I heard 4.
Is that 4 yeses?
No, I heard. Well, yes. Let's do a clear formal vote. There's a formal straw poll, if you will. Where do you land, sir?
I'm for option A.
You had the second, Norm, so where do you land?
I'm for option A as well.
Cassie, you were torn between either.
I'm for option A.
I can support option A, and the fact that that's the straw poll. Option B, for the official record associated with it. Hearn.
Now, what are we actually doing? We're actually doing a straw poll on B?
Just straw poll if you would accept B. But,
Yeah, I think would actually be an alternative I live with, but I think it would actually make all the businesses down there somewhat satisfied. I would hope.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, I would also go with option B.
Yeah.
I would go with option B.
And the key piece that I would leave you with, Don, to your point on your straw poll, is the fact is, if I'm expecting to see a plan by the February 16th, I want to know that it has enough teeth in it to be able to address the feedback and the concerns, or the plan is no value.
Well, exactly. I mean, I was speaking earlier with our economic development person about the detail of a plan that really needs to be down to exactly how we're addressing every little thing. And the dates that I put in there were dates that I thought would keep it from being too long.
And I clearly heard that. And again, the listening public 1 year later, the fact is they are not willing to accept in 2021 when we can roll out a clear plan the way that we, like any other community last year, tried to extend the fall season as long as we potentially could. that is clearly something I've heard that's not acceptable from those that are actually against. Maybe for the listening public that have tuned in since, I have a Carleen Levesque. She's against. She's a Durham resident who has family on this side of the bridge, and she says coming across that bridge at times between 3 and 6 can be miserable. Having had the opportunity to visit Vern in his location, that's a fair assessment because the commuter traffic at that point is pretty intense just walking across it. You walk from the wrong lot to his location. The Janet Tuttle, she prefers option B and references again the traffic and the pitting one business against another. That's everything that I have as of this point that's actually come in during the meeting.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
To Norm, I'm not very fond of 4 to 3 votes, although we've had one recently. I would prefer a vote that got all of us on the same page willingly, not just able to live with the other one. So from this point, I'm hearing that everybody on the council could support option B. If I'm wrong about that, I'd like somebody to chime in, because if I'm correct about that, I would like to withdraw my motion.
Okay, you have the original motion, so you're modifying it to option B. The second
Well, I could do that too. I could do that too.
The second on this is Norm, for the point of order, is Norm, are you in agreement with that friendly amendment to option B?
I am not.
Okay, so the proper protocol would be to vote on the motion that's on the table. If I'm not mistaken, Twyla, if that fails, you could reintroduce B as an option for your same for the next motion, if you chose.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. Mm-hmm.
If it's a
If
vote
it's a vote down,
then you can make another motion for the option B.
Right. Don?
Is this a roll call vote? Are we doing now?
It would be a roll call if you, yeah.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
If
You're
we're
asking for
the item?
Are you actually asking for my vote now?
No, I'm asking, are you ready to move the item?
Yes, I'll move the item.
Roll call vote, please, Twyla.
All right.
For option A, Counselor
Albert.
Yes.
Counselor
Counselor LaRochelle.
No.
Counselor Ward,
Counselor Ward.
Yeah.
Counselor Lunt,
Counselor Lunt.
No.
Counselor
Counselor
Ganong,
Ganong.
No.
Counselor Cole,
Counselor Colby.
Yes.
and Counselor.
And Counselor Fellows.
Yes.
See a 4
We have 4 yeas and 3 nays.
The order passed,
The order passed for option A.
Okay, point that I would make here is that the proof is in the pudding. The fact is, we're all interested, Brett, to be able to see what comes up with a plan, to be able to address the feedback that we've heard.
And may I say something again, Mr. Chair? Brett, I know you already know this, but in coming up with that plan, I'm perfectly willing to assist. But in anything we can do to keep from hurting anyone down there, because I think it's the whole system counts. I just want to put a point on it.
No, absolutely, I would echo that, Don. The fact is, we can't knowingly put somebody in a worse position because of this decision. Absolutely.
All right, so just to clarify what this plan will accomplish. We're looking at the intersection and the visuals of the intersection at Main and Union. We're looking at speeding in the adjacent neighborhoods with strategic placement of temporary speed bumps. We're looking at a job description that entails summer events that will bring foot traffic to Main Street, but also encompasses Grazi Square and Warumbo. We're looking at a vendor process that is simple, inexpensive, and streamlined, particularly for food trucks during the lunch hours. And we're looking to complete the wayfinding signage that was approved by council, as well as greater input from the businesses and signage to designate customer parking priority versus staff parking priority to protect the adjacent parking by, in particular, the laundromat. That's a big one. And as well as in front of the daycare, which is near the extension at the corner of Union and Main. They really depend on in and out traffic and folks dropping off and picking up. And what else am I missing? I think I just want to be clear, those are the big pieces.
So, Mr. Chair, may I? The one thing I'd like to add, and I know I mentioned to Dawn, and it's been brought up tonight even by one of the other people, is some type of traffic control on School Street 196. Since we're driving traffic down 125 and down School Street in mid-afternoon, sometimes people do have to wait 45 minutes to an hour to get out of that intersection. So I'd like to see some type of traffic control on, if this was to go through on the end of School Street on 196, some way to actually stop traffic, whether it's a temporary light or something on that avenue, especially mid-afternoon.
Mr. Chair, to Fern's point there, he talked about traffic light, but there are temporary traffic lights possible. I know the DOT uses them, other people use them on bridge construction and things like that. So maybe something like that is possible. The other thing I would bring up is we want to make sure there's an advertising budget in there. I know you already mentioned that. And we want to make sure that our barriers there are improved and less barrier length.
Okay. So that's painting those barriers.
Well, it is, but it's also the one that's up on Union Street really doesn't even have to be there if you do a four-way stop. You can put the barrier down.
You mean the traffic signage, not barriers, but signage. Yep.
Oh, yes, that, yeah.
Just to be clear, from a budget standpoint, you take advantage of the assets that we have from last year. And that's going to be similar, the waste concrete blocks. If we can get those painted, I think we have time to find an artist to paint those. And so we can improve the appearance of them. But what we're talking about, whether it's traffic control at School Street, which I think, a temporary light, the case can be made to DOT that's going to be necessary in summer 2022. So we can pilot that approach and hopefully get their approval through that process. There's a budget component to this as well. And so I want to make clear that there's going to be a cost to what we're talking about. Not significant, but there is going to be a cost to achieve some of these things. And we'll try to keep that as low as we can. But just to forewarn you that we'll put a budget together for that as well.
Brad, if I could just jump in as well. I know that you're kind of putting together a punch list of things and what this all entails for option A. I would say that thinking about the presentation side to that intersection that's closed off. I know last year we did the best we could, but we had on very short notice and limited materials. But I think that presentation side is a great opportunity for us to advertise those businesses that are on Main Street. I know a couple of the businesses kind of took the initiative on their own at the end of or midway through the season and threw their banners out there. But I'd like to see us do something a little bit more concentrated and a little bit more organized in our approach. And I'm sure you would as well.
I agree. And actually, one of the topics that have come up in conversation and brainstorming subsequent to the input is the visual of what that looked like last year and the fact that it looked closed off. And so there might be value to leaving that open so that as folks drive 196, as they pass, they can see into Main Street and they can see people at the tables and they can see that the opportunity is there. So I think that signage and with, marketing the businesses is an opportunity, but also there's no better marketing than seeing people having a good time there. And so looking at that intersection as an opportunity to have a view up Main Street is an opportunity as well.
Mr. Chair, one last comment, if I could. I know we didn't mention this specifically, but just recently we put up a new signal at 196 in Main Street. And that new signal, or that new camera system, has a better electronic control of the timing on that intersection. One of the advantages, maybe, when we close the street, if we can change the timing on that light, we can eliminate the southbound on Main Street and the straight ahead. We might be able to increase the timing for the other sections of the road that way. So that's my point.
Okay, so to the point that you made yours and the similar one that came in, I wanted to see Logan, specifically looking at that traffic pattern, if there's anything that we can do on that hasn't already been thought of or prevented, Lily. Because
well, if you close off the southbound from on that traffic light, you just eliminated however many seconds that's green. So.
Mr. Chairman, I also have a suggestion that if we're going to make the intersection at Union and Main into a four-way stop, I'd suggest we actually look into doing that permanently, because I think that would benefit the walkability of downtown. Right now you have people that drive through there, and it's scary just to get across Main Street. And I think we could have made that a four-way stop. I think that would benefit the walkability of downtown, regardless of what else we do.
Okay, so at this time, Mark, are you willing to see the concept of the rest of the plan before you consider it? I don't want to lose sight of that if you're looking to make it permanent.
I mean, I think it would just be something good to look into, as part of this, or with DOT, whatever we need to do to authorize that.
We actually have looked into that and fairly recently, and understand DOT's process to evaluate a four-way stop on a state route like that. And a big part of their analysis is number of collisions and number of speeding tickets at that site. And Chief McGee very quickly got his information, and lo and behold, there hasn't been an issue there in the time that would allow us a case to make the four-way stop. So we'll have to be creative about how we make that argument to the DOT.
Okay.
And I couldn't agree more. I think there's an opportunity there.
Yeah,
it's just going to be tricky based on the way the DOT.
I know, it's such a stupid way they do it. They wait until people die and then they let you change things. It's idiotic.
Mr. Chair, I almost got killed there last week. So, and I spoke to Chief McGee about the same thing. It doesn't count that I was almost killed. Have to be killed or run over or something. And so I think he's open to pushing the case a little bit if we need to.
Agreed. Any other content associated with this? I think we threw a lot of stuff at Brett in a short period of time, and I appreciate him being receptive on what's actually going to be in that plan as well. Anything else for the discussion?
And may I, Chair? I think the idea of actually bringing someone on as a summer event coordinator shouldn't be weighted till this new plans come up and accepted. To me, regardless if Main Street happens or not, I mean, the idea of Village Street with the Grassy Square and the Rumble side and still other opportunities. And we still have MTM. We have a lot of areas in town to actually promote, do outdoor type events that we could actually promote throughout the summer. I know as positive change, we actually weren't able to run contests last year, and I'm not sure if those are going to be able to happen again this year, but either way, I mean, we actually have multiple good locations in our community to actually hold events that are outside and get people outside, get some fresh air, and get them different opportunities. So I would hate to think that we have to wait until this next plan is approved to actually move forward with maybe expanding that position for the event coordinator, regardless what happens. That's my opinion, but I will leave it as that.
No, I agree with you, Fern. Anybody else actually have a different understanding of what we voted on at that last meeting is the fact that I thought that was specifically done to address the needs now. Whether we have a plan for this specific location with Moxie Plaza doesn't change the fact of what Brett needs for resources to be able to start utilizing those opportunities in these other spaces. Is everybody else in agreement with that?
Yeah.
I was seeing heads. Let's hear a few more yeses, please.
Yes.
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 Okay, that's unanimous. Yeah, agreed, Fern. That's a good point. Anybody else for anything on this topic? If it's not, I'm gonna move it and we're gonna go to the next item for Twyla. You, Twyla.
Okay, the next
We have
item,
no
we have no appointments. It would be Counselor Communications.
Anybody
Mr.
got
Chair.
it? Yes, Tom.
Mr. Chair, I have some pieces of paper to collect from 6 counselors. During this next week, I'd like to be able to do that. I'll be contacting everybody. If you have a reason why I shouldn't contact you, please let me know that too. Thank you.
Appreciate. Anybody else?
Thanks for the warning, Don.
You're welcome.
Does that mean you're screening calls, Norm? That's not cool. All right, next item, Twyla, nothing else.
Audience
Audience
participation and response for new items. So those listening from Town Hall live video streaming are now invited to send written comments to A Ward at lisbonme.org. Counselor Ward will review his emails at this time.
I've had nothing other than the two that just came in since Twyla, so we're good for now.
All right.
All right, so the next motion would be to adjourn.
I need
Motion to adjourn.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Roll call. For Dawn
Counselor
Counselor Albert?
Yes.
Counselor
Counselor
LaRochelle?
La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt? Counselor Lunt?
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Counselor
Counselor
Ganon?
Ganon?
Yes.
And Counselor?
And Counselor Colby?
Yes.
And Counselor?
And Counselor Fellows?
No.
Twyla, do you have anything that council has to sign because of tonight's meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
We do have a
We do
liquor
have a liquor
license that needs to be signed fairly quickly.
Yep.
We need at
also
least,
have
a lease.
warrant from today too. If you
Right.
guys, there were 2 signatures when I stopped in earlier. I don't know if anybody else has had a chance. I know Jeff had. It's myself and Jeff. So anybody else hasn't gotten in there, please get those as well.
I'll be in tomorrow. I'll be in tomorrow for sure.
We're gonna need 4 signatures on that liquor license, and we won't be able to get that over there until tomorrow morning.
Okay.
correct.
Correct.
I'll wait till the afternoon.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thanks.
That went
Night-
6-1.
night all.
You know that, right?
What's that?
That last vote went 6-1. Dawn said no.
Oh, he did?
He should have to stay in the meeting all by himself.
I
Yeah,
did
you
notice that.
I promise you. You go away and I'll stay.
The role of facilitator will be handled by Dawn Fellows, taking over for Brett. There you go, Dawn. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Good night now. Good night.
Good night.
See you guys.
Goodbye.